I think the just the one about the soldier, because I know you've had that as well come up. But
Yay.
yeah, so I once had a client, she was like a middle-aged lady and went into the energy in her leg, and a soldier came through, but like part of the soldier, it explained that they had been blown up in war, like by a bomb. So it's just like a fragment of this soldier was attached to her leg. And I was like, well, she's never been in the army. Like, how did you two ended up becoming entangled? Because we know that like attracts like. So there has to be some energetic connection between the earthbound and the human, like the alive person. It doesn't just happen by chance. Normally, there's a similar trauma or a gap in the energy system that allows them to connect in. And
Well, a big hello to all you beautiful wee souls out there. Hope you're doing well, trying to navigate your way through this crazy little realm that we call Earth. Um, Energies have been pretty intense the past few weeks. Well, I've been feeling it. I don't know how you guys have been feeling. Huge Mercury retrograde, eclipse season. I've not been sleeping well for like, I don't know, the past 3 weeks and just the past couple of nights. Um, I've just started getting like a decent night's sleep, but oh, that was awful. I was like really, really struggling. I was waking up at like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. So I had the most amazing little chat with the lovely Nicole earlier today, all about earthbound spirits. But before I share the recording, which on the date is what we on the 1st of April, better known as April Fool's Day. But I want to say a happy new year to everyone because I believe this is actually the original and the true new year, which was intended for us because one, for a start, was so much more natural. It is spring. Um, Everyone's chirpier. That's the plants are starting to grow, the birds are out, and it's just such a gorgeous time of year. We've had such a beautiful day here today, like really good temperatures. And what's the time now? It's like 10 to 9 at night, and it's just not long got dark. So I'm going to share a little history fact with you. So back in 1582, it was Pope Gregory the 13th decided that they were taking several countries off the Julian calendar. So, for anyone who doesn't know, the Julian calendar was the one that had 13 months in it and 28 days in a month, which is a much more natural cycle. It's like 4 weeks, 4 weeks, 4 weeks. Then they changed it into the Gregorian calendar, which then gives us 12 months, which then makes all the months all different dates, and it all just gets confusing. Why didn't we not keep it the same? Um, the Great Britain, as they called it, it's not so great now, is it? To be fair, let's be honest about it. There's nothing great about Britain at the moment. We're in a mess. But so GB and all its colonies followed suit in what was that, 1752. Now, anyone who was then still celebrating New Year on April the 1st was called an April Fool. So that is where the term April Fools comes from. So for me, the 1st of January is so unnatural. It is the depths of winter. It is cold. It is dark. The weather is usually shocking. And they've got us out celebrating this happy new year. And it's like, to me, there's absolutely nothing happy or delightful. I should be cocooned up in my bed and not having to travel to friends or family with all those travel disruptions. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little history lesson. So, um, I am now going to share the recording that Nicole and I had. As I said before, we had honestly what a great little chat. And I really hope you enjoy what it was that we discussed. So, without further ado, here is the little recording that we did today. So, also big welcome to any new subscribers or anyone who's randomly just come across this channel. Huge welcome and welcome to the little soul tribe. And we are going to start with about earthbound spirits because that is something we come across all the time in our work. And, I think we've got some pretty fascinating stories to share. So I'm going to start off with I've just made some notes to keep me on track. So, what would be the reason that a spirit would become earthbound? So that basically they don't fully transition over into the light. And this can happen. So I'm going to go through, I've got about 6 reasons why they wouldn't. So, like, you first one, a sudden or traumatic death. So if they died unexpectedly, like through an accident, like a violence, like a murder, or even a suicide, they may not realize that they have passed on, or they might be too shocked to move on. Another one is fear of judgment. So some spirits, they fear actually being punished in the afterlife if um, if they've had like really severe religious beliefs or like conditioning that would tell them that they'd be punished, if they think they've been not the best of souls, that they could get punished. So that could be one reason. Three, unfinished business. So the soul still feels attached to people or places, or they've got unresolved emotions. They might just linger about. Um, the other one is like grief and attachment from the living. Sometimes, like when a loved one, they grieve intensely and they can't let go, then the spirit will stay close to them, just to try and comfort them. And then actually then they just stay there. Another big one is addictions and like really low vibrations. So, say a person's really struggled with, say, drug abuse or alcohol abuse, or they've got like strong earthly desire to, like, they've got anger, they've got greed, they've even got revenge. They may, crave those experiences and it keeps them bound into this sort of physical realm. And let's see, maybe the sixth one, confusion, disorientation. So if the death was met with confusion, someone maybe with dementia or in a coma, heavy sedation, because a lot of people, might be heavily sedated in a hospital, with morphine if they're a lot of pain relief. So the spirit just might not fully understand their passing because of the physical state of the body at that time. So, Nicole, if you can think of anything else,
Well,
but
with
yeah,
that
but
last one,
mm,
it's it always like makes me think about the people that do assisted suicide,
yes,
and they're heavily intoxicated and they can't move on properly. So
yeah,
they're not really getting resolution from their trauma. They're just moving from one state to another.
exactly. Yeah, that'd be quite an interesting one to go and explore. Hmm, interesting thought. But do you want to explain to everyone, like, then what happens, right? So that spirit or that soul or consciousness, whatever you want to call it, comes out of the body. Where do they go and what happens next? And how can they then affect the living?
Yeah, well, what I think happens is they move from the physical body back into the astral plane. And when they move into the astral plane, because I've astral projected, and when you do that, you are literally in the same space that will look very similar to this room right now if I was to leave my body. So then they're still consciously aware. And that surprises most people because we've been conditioned in our society that you die and that's it. You're just going to go into a black hole and nothing's going to happen. But actually, consciousness stays. So they'll be able to see their body on the floor and they'll think, as you say, either it will remind them of the money they had, or they'll start to think about a relative they were really close to and they want to be with again. In the astral, a thought is as good as an action. So, what I mean by that is if you say, I want to go and visit the pyramids of Giza, and you think that as a thought, suddenly you will find yourself at the pyramid of Giza. So that spirit that's moved into the astral, they're going to think about whatever was the most important thing to them in that earthly realm. So if that's addiction, oh, I can still get access to drugs.
Yeah.
Or, oh, I really miss that person. I'm going to go and see them. And as you say, like if that person's then grieving, the person that they go and see, like their relative, they maybe now know about the death. They're now in grief. As we know, that opens up the chakra system, the heart
Hmm.
opens, they're in grief. This spirit sees their loved one grieving over them, and they then become connected at the heart.
Yeah. That's
And so,
actually that's quite a common place for
relative,
a relative to attach onto, isn't it?
yeah, the heart. We always find the relatives at
Mm-hmm.
the heart. I mean, unless it was
Mm-hmm.
like a very aggressive death, like then maybe in the root or the solar plexus, say. But yeah, often they're at the heart, and then yeah, you're gonna have the people that are in like love food. They're gonna be stuck at the solar plexus, or addictions, alcohol, drugs, money, or strong possessive feeling towards a person or a place. Like maybe they got a really nice home in this lifetime, they don't want to leave the home, then they end up the haunted
Yeah.
spirit. But someone else walks in and they've got open chakra system, that earthbound spirit will see them as almost like a being of light walking around in the astral, and they'll go, oh, I'll go and talk to them, or I'll go and like hang out with them until I figure out what to do, because they've now lost access to how to get back to source light. They see
Mm,
this other person who is still connected to source light, and they go and hang around with them. And if that person, the human, the living being, has got trauma, or an open chakra system, that earthbound spirit will just end up attached to them. That's how
yeah.
it happens, is
Yeah.
my understanding from talking to the earthbounds and my own experience in the astral plane.
Yeah. Weirdly enough, talking about the astral plane, I've never actually astral projected, but I do remember having this dream of literally being a spirit. And I was in this shopping center and I was like zooming around. I was just this, little ball of light. And then I was like to this guy, can you see me? And he was like, yeah, 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 I can see you. But then I'm like, no one else can see me here, like nobody. And it was just the most amazing experience, was like flying around and just seeing all these like living people when I was literally a spirit. So I guess, is that what it's like when you do astral project? Because I've never managed to do it.
So I haven't seen like a living person while I was in the astral,
Hmm.
but I have seen um, other beings who had, obviously they were just unconscious in the astral. So they were people like you, like they were looking like humans, they looked like human beings, but you could just tell that they were not aware that they were in the astral.
Hmm.
There was sort of a disconnect there. And yeah, I mean, it was just a crazy time. I had a great time in the astral. I can't wait to go back. But yeah, like on the earthbound spirit thing, I haven't seen like a living person while I was in the astral. I saw my own body lying on the bed, which was quite funny. And I've seen other beings that were not human in the
Yeah.
astral. Um, but yeah, it's wild. But should we talk more about then what then happens when that earthbound's attached to that person,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
impact of that is?
Yeah.
Because I've
Go
got a
for it.
really interesting personal experience with that.
Hmm.
My nan passed away when I was 11 years old. And I would say that I was probably like her closest grandchild. I remember spending a lot of my time at her house, and her passing was very sudden. She fell down a flight of stairs, got a diagnosis of cancer, and within about 3 months, she was gone, because I just don't think she could handle the diagnosis. When she wasn't aware of it, it was just like not an issue. But as soon as she knew about it, it was just like that was it. She just, I don't know, maybe gave up the ghost to say. And I didn't see her much towards the end because it was just really upsetting kind of seeing her deteriorate like that. And I took her death really, really badly.
Hmm.
But the interesting thing is that before she passed away, I had no issue being around spiders. I used to feed them like flies. I used to like collect flying ants and throw them in the nests and like feed spiders and watch them like do all their spidery stuff. And then I remember my nan being really scared of spiders because one Halloween she'd given me some pocket money. I went to the local newsagents. I bought this rubber spider thinking it was the coolest thing ever. I took it back to her house and I was like, "Hey nan, look at this." And she screamed in my face. My uncle came in and was like, "What have you done? Get into the other room." You know, like I was really badly punished. And I was like, "What have I done? Like I'm such a bad child." And then, like later on in life, I realized I was really scared of spiders. Anytime I'd see one, I would scream hysterically and run out of the room. It was like an immediate fight or flight response. So, from going from like feeding spiders to seeing one on the wall over there and being so crippled with fear that I would run out of the room screaming like I'd been murdered, I just thought like this is crazy. And I always assumed that it was because I'd shown her my nan that rubber spider, and I had just like copied her behavior and her actions.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it wasn't until I had my soul center healing hypnotherapy session that I realized my nan was attached to me.
Wow.
So it was
And
her
was
spirit.
that the heart? Was it in the heart as well?
Yeah.
Yay.
And it was her spirit that was fearful of the spider in the astral, seeing it here. And then I was feeling her fear and responding to that.
Right. Yeah.
So I've
Yeah,
now
that
had
makes
her spirit
sense, doesn't
taken
it?
off,
Yeah.
and I can see a spider on the wall there now and not be
And
bothered
then
by
not
it.
be bothered. So that's just show that's like that energetic overlay, isn't it?
Yeah. And that,
Of how that melds in with your your mind,
yeah,
essentially, your whole
yeah.
being. Hmm.
You believe that you are scared of spiders, and actually there's an entity attached to you who's scared of spiders that's feeling that
Yeah.
fear, and you're feeling their fear assuming it's yours. And that's how it works with addicts as well. Like
Hmm.
they'll try and say, right, this is it, I'm going to stop taking coke, or I'm going to quit the weed or whatever it is that they're addicted to, and they quit, they manage, but then all the earthbounds that are attached to them because they love, smoking weed, the earthbound spirits they're attached to, they'll start encouraging and putting forward those feelings of like, no, we need to smoke again, we need the weed. And then that person smokes, and then suddenly all that internal noise and pressure just calms down again because the earthbounds feel
Hmm.
happy that they've got their fix again.
Yeah, because it's the little voice that's popping into someone's head to remind them. And, I guess they've just got to have such strong willpower to just be like, not to not feed it. Oh,
And
sorry. That's my
most people wouldn't be
phone.
aware that they have like 10 earthbound spirits piggybacking off their addiction that's going to
No,
make it so
no,
hard to quit.
no, 100%. Yeah. I know
It's
I
wild.
mean, yeah, it's quite fascinating. So what was your experience that you had then with your nan? Like
Well, that was,
when she was found in your heart and then, and what happened when, what did she have to say about it? Did she realize that she was attached in with you or?
yeah, it was just a case of like helping her see that it wasn't helpful to be attached to me,
Hmm.
having that conversation with her, saying how much I love her, and she needs to go back to the light now. And then knowing that she can still come back and be there as like a
Yeah.
guardian if she wants to from the light. So she doesn't need
Mm.
to be attached to my heart and affecting my life now. Um, and yeah, and I was carrying a lot of grief. It took me a long time to get over her death. And now I wonder if it was her grief for her death. Like she wasn't ready to go. And I was just
Maybe.
feeling that for a long time. And it's
Mm.
funny because the moment that all stopped, the grief thing stopped, was I did a race for life on the day that she passed. It just so happened that it was on the day that she passed that this race for life was happening. And so I subscribed and I did it and I raised all this money. And I don't know whether that made her realize like she is genuinely gone.
Right, maybe.
That seeing me take that action, writing her name on the cancer
Yeah.
thing, because maybe she was disorientated when she passed.
Yeah. Well, that's it. We don't always know, do we? That's weirdly enough, actually, in a session I had, my grandmother was attached into my heart, and it came up as a like fluttering kind of feeling. Um, and I kept going, there's nothing bad. There's nothing bad that's in here. And then as we connected in, and I just got this huge a picture of her face. And then, do you know when it all just then starts almost channeling through you? So when she passed, I think I was how old was I? Maybe like 18, 19. And she knew that I was going to go through a lot of heartache and grief. So it was just a part of her soul. It was only a part of her soul that was then left with me. So she was in my heart chakra to help me through all that grief and trauma that I was going to then experience in the next however many years. And because I was doing all this healing work, she was now ready to leave and take that part of her soul to go back and join her. And I remember the practitioner that was doing it was almost in tears. She said it was like the most beautiful, sweet thing ever, you know?
Sounds so wholesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
wonderful.
And then, yeah, and what other experiences, any other little earthbounds that kind of stick in your mind that you've come across in your clients?
Yeah, I'll tell you about the priest. So I had a client
Mhm.
who, yeah, so a female client, like she's so filled with light. She's definitely a light worker, come here to do all the good stuff in the world that we're here to do. And she had visited a church, and that's when this priest who had passed over attached to her. So he was found in the root chakra, but hanging around like the lower part of the legs. I think he was affecting her knee, and we had a conversation with him because she was channeling his energy. And yeah, he had not been a very good person in this life. I read into that as to doing something with children. and
Mm-hmm.
and he said, yeah, he didn't feel like he could pass over because of the judgment. So as you were saying there about the religious
Yeah.
judgment,
Mm-hmm.
but that he also wanted to close down this like feminine energy. So I think that's another part of the church, isn't it? It's like very masculine, especially like the old, like in the olden days. The Christian Catholic churches have been very male dominated, male priests, and yeah,
Yeah.
this female positive energy came in, and he just wanted to close it down and not let her shine her light. And yeah, he was quite a dark one, but
Yeah.
helped him into the light all the same, because that's what we do. We treat them all the same, don't we?
Yeah.
You know, they're
Well,
all part
that
of source.
compassion, the compassion that we give them. But yeah, I find, do you ever find spirits that have become dark over time? And you've actually mistaken them for being a demon, and then you ask, did you ever have a human body? And then they're like, well, actually I did. And it's like over time, because of wherever they've been, because we don't always know, I mean, we don't get the whole story from them of, sometimes we know where they've gone when they've come out of the body and where they've first gone, but we don't know because like it can be hundreds and hundreds of years that they have just been bouncing around and you don't know how many people they've attached onto until they've found like the client that you're then dealing with. And I have found some that, are so angry and so dark, um, and their energy comes through. Comes through as a very black and quite often red, isn't
Yeah,
it?
a
Black
lot
and
of
red
anger.
mixed together. That red is the anger, and then the black and the darkness. And when I guess when we've taken them back and then shown them the light and explained to them what's happened to them, it really is. I think that's one of my favorite parts is them transforming into like, oh,
Yeah.
they get it and they just get the most incredible healing at the time, even before they've been taken back to source as well, haven't they?
Yeah, they can get so emotional. They start breaking down into
Mhm.
tears, and they get really apologetic and really remorseful. But that's the beauty of this work, is like we're not only healing the person that's lying on the bed in front of us,
Mm.
but we're healing all the demons, all the earthbounds that are stuck in trauma, because that's part of the work, isn't it? Is communicating with that earthbound
Yeah,
and helping them through their own trauma so
yeah,
that they feel okay going back to the light.
yeah,
because
So, I
of the,
mean, yeah, there's so many stories. I mean, I've got so many. I mean, there's a couple that stick in my mind, but the trauma that they've gone through. So, I'll share. This is the oldest spirit I've ever come across. So, we are going back to the year 1212, and his name's Daniel, and I think he was. I'm just totally going off memory. I think he was his early 30s, right? So he was at market and he had sold his sheep. I think it was sheep or something. And had got silver, which silver would have been like the currency back then.
yeah,
And he was, some of them actually give you a really detailed description of what happened. So he is sitting cross-legged in front of his fire, eating bread. His family are sleeping in bed, and someone comes in his back door, and he didn't see who it was, but they slit him across the throat because they wanted the silver in my purse. That was his words. So he said, I asked, well, what happened next? So he shot off out of his body, and he said he went up through the trees, through the sky, and then had this thought going, my family don't know that I've passed. So he came shooting back down, and he said, I need to come back and protect my family from the evils of the earth. So going back through memory, I think he then attached to his wife or one of his children. But the interesting part of this one was the lady I was dealing with, he said that he is an ancestor of hers. So he had literally attached into every single female on the father's side of her family since the year 1212. And guess what he was attached to? In her neck,
yeah.
in this area.
That's where the wound was.
Yeah. And it's, and you're like, now this makes sense. So,
And did she get pain in her neck?
yeah, she had throat problems and pain in her neck and shoulders and stuff.
Yeah, because
And
that trauma's energetically living through him, through
yeah,
their bodies. Yeah,
100%. And it was just so nice. So he was then he was just like, when we explained to him what had happened, he was so ready to go, and he was
but he was tired.
so delighted. When you get in, they're just so delighted, to be able to go back to source, get all that healing, get all that love, and be able to move on, because that's a long time to be attaching. But in his consciousness, he was helping all these females.
That really ties into what I was saying about shooting off into the astral and realizing you've still got consciousness and and then choosing something different to what you should do, which is go back to the light. And you consciously say, no, I'm going to go and protect my family. And then you end
Yeah,
up stuck. Because how long do you do that for? like,
yeah.
I had I had a situation where my client had a little child in the womb space, and I spoke to this child and I was like, how did you end up being here? And it turned out my client had gone to the hospital while she was pregnant, and this child had passed over due to illness whilst in the hospital. And while he was out of his body, he saw the child spirit in my client's womb
Ah,
and was like, oh, there's a friend that I can play with.
oh,
And so the spirit, the little boy, played with both the pregnancies, the spirits of the
yeah,
pregnancies
yeah.
that my client had. Um, and yeah, so we helped him back into the
So
light.
then, so she then had her baby, and then she still got this little spirit child that just decided to probably made a lovely little nest in there in that sacral,
Yeah, it felt
you
like
know?
home. She was quite a
Mm,
motherly, energy.
yay.
So he felt happy there. Enjoyed watching what she got up to. They often say that, oh, I like watching her life. I like what she gets up
Mhm.
to. She's really nice.
So cute, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about children. Excuse me, I'm gonna just have a little sip of water. I've got a really fascinating one about a little girl, actually.
Yeah, tell us that one.
So this goes back to, I think, 1941, and her name was Annabelle, 6 years old, and she had gone with her mother. a friend, like another little girlfriend, and they had like a blanket and a picnic and by the river, and they put all their stuff down, and then there was a farm nearby, and the mother had said, "Oh, I'm going to go get milk from the farm." And Annabelle decided that she didn't want to go. So the mother and the friend went off to go and collect some milk. Um, and when the mum came back, Annabelle's nowhere to be seen. So what had happened, and it was three men in brown uniforms. So I'm presuming this is like army guys.
Military, yeah.
Yeah, the military. And she basically they will use the R word. And when they were then finished with her, they tossed her into the river. And then the mum was frantically looking for her, eventually found her, and was like just devastated, absolutely devastated. So as we progressed through this, um, she but when I crossed over, her mum was so happy to see her. She'd been looking for her since like back in the 40s, and it was just gorgeous to see them reunited. But interestingly enough, as we were then going through the session, one of the, do you know when you start putting the jigsaw puzzle together with issues that are going on within your client? So that energetic overlay of Annabelle, this goes, I mean, this just gets even more crazy. Um, so my client had a milk intolerance, and Annabelle said she didn't get the milk, she didn't get the milk, she didn't get the milk, right? So this woman had this milk intolerance, which is now gone, now that Annabelle's have been removed. But the even crazier part of it is this client of mine had a miscarriage. And then so she had to then go to the hospital to get, I think it's called a D&C, isn't it? It's a
Mm.
D&C. And so she went in for the operation. She had an anesthetic, and when she came out of the operation, she was so unbelievably bruised all over her, down her legs, everything, right? Now, and then, as we've progressed through the session, we find out again that is the energetic overlay of little Annabelle, because the intrusiveness of something going up this lady's,
Yeah.
and it's come out in physical bruising within my client. And the other thing that was an issue was, she said, like, if her husband and her were messing about, how couples sometimes a man will like sort of pin your arms down and they're just messing about, maybe wanting to give you a kiss and just
Yeah, a bit of role
messing
play.
around, she would literally be flipping out and freaking out and didn't understand why she felt this, because she loved her husband so much, but this particular sort of
Yeah.
playful position. And again, the energetic overlay of Annabelle. And it all just started to make so much sense. So, like, loads of things changed in her life afterwards. But that was one that really stuck in my mind about how it can affect if that spirit has experienced that, then
Well,
why people.
it's the spirit reliving PTSD,
Yeah,
and it's their PTSD trauma response that the client is feeling, but once again not knowing that there's actually something attached to them that's feeling that fear.
yeah, yeah, because it makes no sense to the living human of like what's going on,
Yeah,
where does
this
this
isn't in
come
my
from?
past.
Yeah,
Yeah.
is it a path, and I think that's the other interesting thing to speak about. So people that are going for like quantum healing hypnotherapy, unless you're clearing off these attachments, how do you know when you are going through the journey of a past life that is that your past life, or is that a spirit's past life, an attached spirit's past life?
Or even repressed memories in therapy.
Yeah,
I was just thinking about that one. Like, you get a memory and think, oh, that must be where the traumas come
yeah,
from. And it might be the spirit's memory that you're kind of like getting a sort of
yeah,
overlay with your own past or something.
absolutely. So,
Yeah.
that's where I always say to people, you know, because I used to do QHHT, but I just don't want to do it because I'm like, I don't know what I'm connected into. I want to get you clean and clear, get your vessel cleared out so we can really connect into a
Your soul.
genuine past life and
Yeah.
genuine higher self because you just don't know what it is that people are
Yeah.
channeling through.
And then obviously you get all the energetic interference where whatever's attached doesn't want you talking to your authentic higher self, and they
Mm,
put false messages forward, and you think that you had all this insight given to you because demons are clever, right? They do know stuff about us. They are outside of
mm.
time and space. They can see the future, the past, and they might tell you things that you would expect your higher self to know, and and yeah, con
Ah,
you into
truth.
thinking you're talking to them, but you're not.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be, I think we'll have to do a little discussion on the demons because I mean, what they are fascinating, aren't
That's
they?
a whole other topic, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, that is actually, I think, yeah, to anyone listening, my next one I'm going to put out, I've just, taken a bit of a recording of, and I'm going to go, this is a reptilian in someone's throat chakra. Little reptilian slave, bless him. I actually felt really sorry for the little thing. He was a pure slave.
Yeah, because
Hate
we talked to
the
the ones at
man.
the bottom of the pile, so they're often
Yeah.
having a really rough time.
I know, I know. Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely up for discussion in the next one. Are you anything else that you want to share or
I think the just the one about the soldier, because I know you've had that as well come up. But
yay.
yeah, so I once had a client, she was like a middle-aged lady and went into the energy in her leg, and a soldier came through, but like part of the soldier, it explained that they had been blown up in war, like by a bomb. So it's just like a fragment of this soldier was attached to her leg. And I was like, well, she's never been in the army. Like, how did you two ended up becoming entangled? Because we know that like attracts like. So there has to be some energetic connection between the earthbound and the human, like the alive person. It doesn't just happen by chance. Normally, there's a similar trauma or a gap in the energy system that allows them to connect in. And so this woman, it turned out, had to do a project for work on war. She was something to do with like the government or something, but they'd asked her to do this piece on war, like artillery weapons or something. And that was enough to create an energetic link that he then attached to her. So that was just another fascinating one. And she had really bad rosacea. And at
Mhm.
the end of the session, her face wasn't red anymore.
No.
So I don't know whether it was that specific spirit or another one. She actually had two children in her leg as well. And they were singing that, "We are Siamese, if you please." Which was really funny. And they were really sad when we had to move them on. But
Oh,
yeah.
oh, that's the thing with the kids. That's their little home that they've made, isn't it?
Yeah, and they're playful
Um,
and they feel safe there. And
Yeah, I know. I think, when I first started on this little journey of what it is we're doing, it was the children ones that really used to affect me. I would find it really hard to hold my emotions, and now it's amazing. I can just do it so easily and just with so much love and compassion for those little kids, and they're absolutely fine as long as you surround them with that angelic love, to make them feel safe. Then they're okay. But
yeah,
yeah, some of the I've I come across a lot of um earthbound children, which is just so heartbreaking. There's stories of things that they've gone through.
yeah,
And when you think about it, how how many traumatic deaths are there worldwide every day? And if you think about it over centuries and centuries, thousands and thousands of years, we don't even know how long any of us have, like humans, have been here. So think of the stuff that has happened over the years and how many of these earthbounds are literally, zooming around looking for that, magnetic frequency because it
yeah,
has to be a vibrational match for that that spirit to be attracted to that human.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
We should do another piece as well on how the dark ones use this knowledge of how the spirits pass over to keep them trapped.
Yeah, the soul trap.
Soul traps, but with children as well.
Children, I
And then
know.
what they do with
Yeah,
the spirits afterwards. That's really
yeah,
sad because
it
that's
is.
like with intention. Yeah, it's sad when like one passes over in a car accident or something and it was unexpected and they're traumatized. But when it's
Yeah,
like, no, they're intentionally being harmed to then trap the soul, that's
yeah.
another level of depravity.
Well, it is, isn't it? I know. We honestly, there's so many different subjects. So if anyone who is listening to this, honestly, if you want to drop in the comments below, if there's anything that you would like us to discuss, and it'd be quite even good to do a little live show
Yeah.
sometime, then people can interact with us and ask any questions because I mean, man, it's a convoluted subject, really, isn't it? I mean, it just goes off in so many different tangents all over the place,
Yeah.
but
We'll never get
utterly
bored.
fascinating. And I think Nicole and I are both the same. It's like we just feel that if more awaken, there's a lot of people awake out there, but they're not coming into this side of it. Because I honestly believe this is the key. If people understand this and then create emotional mastery and are aware of all of this, I just call it the great unseen world. That is how we shift humanity through into the next stage of this, like the
Evolution.
great awakening. Yeah, the cosmic evolutionary shift. It's just like, you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you ever get people ask, how can you do this? Are you not scared?
yeah.
Like you're going to be psychically attacked or something like along those lines?
All the time. They're just like, how can you do it? You're not scared. And I was just like, I have not one ounce of fear in my body. It's really weird. Like back in the day, I'd have been absolutely freaked out, going, oh my God, there's a ghost, there's a ghost, there's a ghost, there's like something there,
Yeah.
And now I'm just like, now that I know what to do, I just have this such deep understanding of it. And yeah, you can't do this work if you've got any doubt or fear. It's absolutely not. I mean, I've been literally, screamed at and spat at because I sometimes do in-person sessions. I don't particularly want to do them in person, but some people really do insist, especially people that live in quite close by to me.
Yeah.
um, I think they feel safer, because I think they're so scared. And, I'm just like, oh man, it's just, yeah, some of the crazy things that have happened. And I'm like going, if I can do this, I can do anything. And it's like, that's the whole point is have no fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And it is about finding that deep well of compassion and just thinking, wow, this person, the demon or the earthbound spirit or whatever, even the narcissist, if they're like a living human being, they're in just such a bad place and they don't have a better tool or system to manage. Like they're in the
Exactly.
worst place.
Exactly. Yeah, that's so true, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Well, honestly, Nicole, I always enjoy my chats with you. I
Same.
hope, thank you to anyone who's listened to us to the end, and
Yeah.
look forward to seeing you next time. And as I say, I'm going to share the little one about my little reptilian slave. Oh my God, I just felt so sorry for him, but he was all freed. I mean, that poor little thing was actually, where was he chained? Chained at the heart to his leader. So
Yeah. That's
so
tough, isn't it?
Nicole, thank you again, and
Thank
bye
you.
bye everyone, and we'll see you soon.